Hi everybody, welcome to the Virtue Signal. I'm Bill Whittle with my friend Alfonso Rachel, and you probably know the drill by now. Zoe, I have a kind of a standard operating theory about what's going on in the world, and that is that all of us are being tested with assaults on our sanity, assaults on our health, assaults on our freedom, and that it's just one giant kind of a grinding wheel, just to wear us down to the point where it's like, oh, we finally just kind of give up. I really believe that's what's going on. So our today's topic is self-defense, because if this theory of mine is true, and it is, then really the targets in this war for the soul of America, for the ideas of the country, they're not targeting battleships, they're not targeting industrial centers, they're targeting each one of us and our will and our ability to fight back and all the rest of it. And I thought, since you've been a self-defense instructor, that you'd be a good guy to talk to about this, because my take on this is the stronger the citizenry is, the sooner we're going to win this fight, and we are going to win it. We'll talk about that in our next show this week. So to quote my friend Steve Stipp, who first came up with the immortal phrase that I'm about to mention, I've been just really, really tired lately. Not just emotionally drained, just physically in pretty bad shape for me anyway. I've always been really healthy and tried to keep myself in good shape. And lately I've been feeling what my friend Steve said to me once, 20, 30 years ago. I said, Steve, you need to get up more, man. You're slowing down. You put on some weight. You need to exercise. And Steve said to me, I'm in no condition to exercise. And to this day, that's still one of the best things I ever heard. But to be honest with you, Zoe, that's how I feel. I don't know if this is true for anybody else, but I think it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about things that we can do to make ourselves into healthier, tougher people. Because clearly, as much as some of us don't want to admit it, myself included, our mental state depends an awful lot on our physical state. And I know that when I was going to the gym and working out every day and taking care of myself, my energy levels were much higher, my mood was much higher, and I have fallen off of that wagon.
Indeed, man. And, and as you said, I instructed martial arts for a long time. I still enjoy the martial arts. And if it's one thing, strangely enough, it's one thing I cannot stand is like working out and exercise. I know that's kind of hard to tell. I'd probably grab some people by surprise, but.
Friends don't let friends skip leg day.
Considering like all the kicks involved and all that sort of stuff, it's like, these legs gotta be in pretty good shape. And I actually, and as far as being a drummer as well, I break a lot of sweat, drumming.
You got to be in great shape for that.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised, man. A lot of heavy set drummers out there, man. How you gonna be heavy set like that, man? Be able to play
I've
to that degree.
I've never seen a fat drummer.
It happens. It's strange.
I have seen one. There's a video out there that says this guy is in the wrong gig, and it's like the world's worst wedding band singing. I forget what
like
the song
ZZ Top or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Singing ZZ Top, Sharp Dressed Man, and this kind of overweight drummer, boom, boom, boom. He's really kicking butt.
Yeah.
But with him as a single exception to this theory.
Right.
What do we do? What do we do to make ourselves mentally stronger? How can we help ourselves with that?
Well, I have a basic, because we talk about, this fight that we're trying to win, and it's one thing to win the fight, and it's another thing to maintain the victory and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be one of those things, Bill. There has to be an acceptance of what we're going to base this. What are we motivated by? What is it that we're trying to preserve? And then from there, when we say, okay, we're trying to preserve what? Freedom? Okay. Freedom according to what? What's your idea of freedom?
To do what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do I have freedom to watch Netflix? Yeah, I got that freedom.
And defining that takes a lot of stamina. It takes a lot of patience. And, to do these things, so we have to establish like what our motivation is. And as we can see, say, for instance, a person can say, well, look, man, if you study the word, and already, people say, there you go with the Jesus stuff. They say, okay, well, if you want an answer about how we're going to do this, and Jesus was pretty fit, by the way. Jesus wasn't some, weenie that people see like hanging up on a cross or something like that. The dude was actually in very good shape. very good shape, because the pictures of Christ that are, between Moses and David and Joseph, all these people who give the picture of who Christ is, he was a very fit and able-bodied man. All right.
They kind of have to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and his disciples had the confidence in him. It's like, this guy is going to put together the militia of all militias. We're behind this guy because he fits. He's built. He's strong. Even the word says that he was built up strong. He was strong.
That's the word I'm looking for. Because if this is an attack on the entire population, and it is, then what I wanted to explore today was what we can do. People say, well, what can we do? Well, we can make society stronger. Well, how do we do that? Well, we make the citizens stronger. That's really about it. If a country is just nothing but the collection of the component parts of its individual citizens, then if you're going to strengthen the country, you have to strengthen the individual.
Yes. Yeah. And once again, and if it's one thing that the Lord does recognize, it's our individuality. I mean, he's big on that. However, even as an individual, this blessed individualism that we had, if we want to maintain it, there has to be a sense of something that we can agree on, a one-mindedness. And like I said, when it comes down to liberty, how do you define liberty? This thing that we want to fight for, this thing that we sacrifice for, and all that sort of stuff. Because even when we sacrifice for liberty, if we're going to be motivated, if we're going to build ourselves up to preserve liberty, one has to be careful that liberty isn't something that you idolize and you're sacrificing yourself for that. Liberty has to come from somewhere. Liberty isn't something that created itself. There's an idea that's behind it. It's something that was always here. And that's the Lord himself. Now, liberty isn't just something that I say, here's liberty. I am the liberty. I am the truth that sets you free. That's me. It's not just it's not just truth. It's the truth that you know. Do you know who I am? And then from there, I have the thing that frees you eternally. My freedom, to use those liberal buzzwords that they like so much, my liberty is sustainable. All right.
That's it. That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? You try to do liberty on your own terms, then all you will be doing is trying to sacrifice for an idol. And it doesn't lead to good places. Look at what's happening to us, because people have these ideas of liberty. They're making all sorts of not only are they making sacrifices on their own, they're forcing other people to make sacrifices. Right? We're having to sacrifice, having to wear masks. People are being sacrificed of their jobs. People are sacrificing the unborn. People are sacrificing this and they're forcing these sacrifices on other people. This is idolatry that makes nations collapse. The Lord says, man, I don't play that. You guys want real liberty? You guys are doing nothing of the sort. Liberty's in me.
Well, here's, for those people who think this whole idea might be a little, nutty or weak or kind of out there. Let's just break it apart. If people say, well, our freedoms are being, let's just take election integrity, for example. Our elections, we feel our elections are being stolen. I feel that. What are we going to do about it? And as I was thinking about the show, as you never know what I'm going to talk about before we start rolling, and I don't know what I'm going to talk about before I get in the elevator. But as it occurred to me, I said, well, what are we going to do about election integrity? And I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, and I thought, well, let's do some deep knee bends. And here's how that works. Over time, males, because the strength of society, that kind of moral strength, that kind of, all of that mental discipline. I don't have to go through this. We've been through this on 80 shows now. But that's essentially driven by testosterone. Testosterone levels are falling throughout society catastrophically around the world. They're just collapsing. Generally speaking, for an adult, it starts up here, here's testosterone levels, here's age, and then as you age, it just goes down like this. For me, it kind of went like this. And so needless to say, I did what any modern American did when I was faced with the feeling of like loss of energy and stuff. I wanted the easy answer. I went down to the doctor, said, "What? Give me the shot. Not the other shot. Give me a shot so that I don't have to worry about this anymore." He said, I can give you a shot. It won't do any good. It'll just be reabsorbed. I said, the only thing you could do really is to raise your testosterone levels, Bill, is exercise, especially the large muscles of your legs and buttocks. Exercising those muscles is really the only thing that will permanently get testosterone levels up. And I said, well, that's disappointing. You're telling me I have to exercise in order to get what I want from exercise? Can I just get an exercise shot? No, you can't. Now, I know that sounds flip, but really just think about it. Over the course of my lifetime, I saw a picture the other day. I just do a lot of just general browsing. And I saw a picture the other day, and it was like a seaside resort. It might have been Atlantic City, or maybe it was Malibu, something like that. And it was a crowd of people on the streets, and it was taken about 1964 on the boardwalk, out in the sun. And all the men were in bathing suits, and all the women were in, bikinis or other bathing suits. And I'm talking, there were hundreds of people in this picture. And they were they weren't just fit, they were buff. I'm not talking about just young dudes either. I mean, there was no obesity there, none. And there was none of this pudginess, that I'm starting to feel is affecting me, and this kind of doughy kind of, let's just, for the sake of the argument, because I think it's related to this, let's just say soy, right? Soy is the antithesis of testosterone. Soy boys are soft and kind of weak, and they're mentally kind of, emotionally kind of weak, and there is a chemical reason for this, and it is declining testosterone. You can't have a strong, vibrant society if your men feel like marshmallows, and this is happening more and more and more. A lot of it is that we are getting very little exercise compared to what we used to get when we were kids. We rode around on our bikes all the time. You don't see that much anymore. And another part of it is the food that we eat, the processed food. The caption for this thing, and I mean, there were hundreds of people in this thing. And I thought, if you were to take anybody off of the beach right now in Santa Monica and put them in that crowd, they would be considered obese by those standards, And I'm not talking about pulling obese people off the deck. I'm just saying the average guy. And so I really think that this is it. And if testosterone levels continue to drop, then men get less male. They get less ornery, less, resistant, less willing to fight. They get more tolerant of intrusions in their liberty and intrusions in their family and intrusions in their own lives. And it just turns into this kind of pudding, And I'll tell you, I feel myself heading in that direction, and I don't like it. It scares the bejesus out of me, if you'll pardon the expression. And I see what's happening to the entire society. So I took several years ago now, I don't know how long, 7, 8 years ago or something, I took some one-on-one self-defense classes, and I took them for about 6 months from a Marine. I almost said a former Marine, but there are no former Marines. And he didn't teach me, I wasn't really interested in the philosophy of martial arts or anything like that. I just wanted to know how to get out of trouble if I looked like I wasn't going to be able to run.
Right.
My ability to run has gone downhill too. But nevertheless, I learned enough stuff in there for me now to look at situations completely differently than I used to. Now when I'm out there and I see something tense, there's a lunatic I met in a convenience store. I mean, a raving lunatic who was just going around and just really, really getting in people's faces. And I remember sitting there thinking, I won't tell you what it was particularly, but I remember thinking, now I have a plan. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I've got a plan. If this guy decides that he's going to get close to me and start getting violent with me, it's no longer a question of what will I do. Mm-hmm. Now it's a question of, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm getting ready to do it right now. Mm-hmm. And that attitude is an entirely different attitude. I'd never realized the value of self-defense until I'd had enough self-defense to be able to find myself in a situation that I thought was getting a little dicey and just say, oh, for once now, it's not like, what am I going to do if this guy, really goes out on me? Now it's like, oh no, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And he's not going to get a chance to go off on me, because when he crosses a certain line that I was taught, mm-hmm. and then he's the one who's going to be under attack. And it's a tremendous feeling. And gun owners know this feeling, but I'm trying to get to a more society-wide sense of the power of physical fitness and the power of knowing how to defend yourself, not just against the physical threats, but if you are prepared to defend yourself against physical threats, it makes you much, much more resilient when it comes to psychological attacks, spiritual attacks, emotional attacks, and all the rest of these attacks that we're under all the time.
Awesome, man. You said a lot of things in there that piqued my interest. Like, man, where do I begin? Stuff that really set off some lights here. The Lord Himself talks about being in readiness a lot. Right? He's like, look, man, I'm not trying to scare you, trying to prepare you. I need you to be ready. In terms of the Lord being able to defend Himself, people say like, well, the Lord just handed Himself over to be slaughtered. And as I've said before, that's because the Lord was here to fight a war that only He could win. It's like, look, man, I got to meet death to beat death. Okay. So you guys can't do that. That's going to be up to me. In terms of like him being able to, like a lot of people, they remember the story of Jesus, going into and flipping over. They love that because they'll see Jesus was anti-capitalist, and that's not at all the statement that He was making. Had nothing to do with capitalism, by the way. But in terms of being able to fight, not even the temple guards and Israel can fight. Make no mistake, Israel, there's some people that you don't want to mess with in terms of a fight. And even the temple guards didn't want to mess with Jesus when He came in and start flipping over those heavy tables and throwing people out. When we want to get fit, like, as we say in the Christian community, if you really want to get fit, you got to do them knee bends. You know what I'm saying? You got to get on your knees and start praying. Get up, get down, and work them knees, work them quadriceps and them glutes and all that stuff, to do that exercise. And but when you're talking about the test, getting back to the test, and manhood is definitely under a serious test. It's one of the reasons why feminism is taking over so much. And Paul warned about these things and let you know, he said, hey, effeminate males will not inherit the kingdom. Okay. You need to be a man. All right. You got to man up. So Paul makes this warning very strict. And as far as the test goes, when we talk about test, the word test itself comes from testosterone. When we talk about,
I did not know that. I did not know that. Really?
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, these things, you study the word of God and it's telling you where these words are coming. When you talk about the test, when you talk about a testimony, you got to man up to make a testimony. You can get killed for making a testimony.
How did I not know that?
Right?
Considering how much I know. How did I not know that?
Well, I mean, and even estrogen is a byproduct of testosterone. So even when women got to step up to the test, they got to tap into that testosterone in order to do this. Now, this is the Lord going back to, understand that this is going to get weird from some folks, but this is a very solemn and test of your manhood and a test of your oath. You ain't going to be an oath breaker after this one. Like when you have Abraham, it says, hey, I need you to place your hand under my thigh. Look me in the eye, boy, and don't make it weird. All right. I got a test for you and you're going to keep this oath. And when it says to put his hand up under his thigh, it's not just put your hand under the thigh. It's like get up underneath there, under the junk. I need you to get them under the testicles. Okay. We're going to put this oath to the test. All right. Now, from there, what you're saying is that I'm going to bless this bloodline, the lineage that is going to lead to Jesus Christ, who Himself, I'm talking about the manny man of all mans who's going to show that testosterone in full and take the licks that nobody could take and get up on that cross and say, it is finished. I have passed the test. And when I come back, it's going to be written on my thigh. This was foretold way back in Abraham. Yeah, I'm going to complete the test. What was placed, the oath that was taken from the hand under the thigh? Yeah, that's me coming back with that name written on my thigh. That's me.
Closest we get to that in society today is once every 7 years and somebody does it and then they say cough. That's it. You're done. Come see me in another decade.
Don't make it weird, Doc. Don't make it weird.
No. This is where it really does start to get really important, This sense that if you've got a society made of individuals and the individuals are made up of their own biology, if you can change the biology of individuals, you change the composition of the society. And we always want to look at things top down. This is always our problem. It's like, well, this political leader or this movement or George Soros or so on. It's actually much more subtle than that, which means more difficult than that. A lot of this is coming from the bottom up and we don't even know it. And we're willing to accept it. And the biggest, the reason that so much of this is happening, not just the decline in physical fitness and decline in testosterone, all of that stuff, is because it's easier. It's easier for me to go and get a shot to give me my energy back than it is to do the exercises that I would do in order to need to do that. It's easier to send your kids to public school, as Scott pointed out in one of our right angles this week. You know, people are complaining about what's going on in schools, and Scott voiced the opinion, which is generally not popular, especially when it comes to being the truth. You send your kids to these schools, and what do you expect? You know, you're sending your kid to the state to be educated by the state, and then the kid comes back with these state sponsored ideologies, and you're shocked and amazed by this. And all of this comes down to, I don't even want to call it laziness, because laziness implies a certain kind of awareness of it, you know? Laziness to me means I should be doing something, but I'm not going to. I'm going to watch WKRP and Cincinnati Marathon. And so this is a little more subtle than that. This is sort of an unawareness, and it may be kind of a willful blindness to the fact that ultimately all of this stuff comes down to us, you know. It's our individual responsibility. It's our individual responsibility to make sure that elections have integrity. It's our individual responsibility for all of these things. It's our individual responsibility to make sure that our kids are not stolen from us ideologically and physically by the state. And that's harder than it is to just simply get them dressed and put them on a bus. You know, if that means things like homeschooling or whatever, it's much, much, much harder. And so we find ourselves in this kind of horrible death spiral where it's easier to do this than this, so we do. So we become less fit, not just physically fit, emotionally fit. We become less spiritually fit. And then since we're less spiritually fit, the next time we have a smaller challenge, we're going to go with the easier one because we're feeling kind of weak and tired and stressed and all the rest of it. And down we go. And it's like anything else. You know, you've mentioned that I mentioned a lot about this idea you have to mow the grass, that we can lose this fight, but we can never win it. And we can never win it. But technically, that's not true. We can win it, but we have to win it every day. We can never get to the point where we say evil is vanquished and everything's great now. The second you stop, entropy is against us. Let's put it that way, right? Disorder is easier than order. It's easier to smash a watch than it is to build a watch. And all of this stuff that is constantly trying to tear things down, that's the direction that the universe works. Entropy flows downhill. And what I'm talking about in this episode, and what we need to do, and what we traditionally have done as a people, mostly because our lives were much harder before, we were in much better shape, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, is that we gotta understand that the salvation here that we're looking for is going to consist of us just saying, all right, I gotta get up off the couch, either in a literal sense or in a figurative sense, and I have to go out and do the work. And that's the bad news. But the good news is that if you make a decision to turn that corner, then you can go from a downward spiral to an upward spiral. I had like a lifelong crush on this person, and before I met my wife, obviously, when I was young and infantile. And I suddenly realized, you know, it's like, I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm just going to buff myself up. I was much, much younger then. And so I did. And within the space of, I don't know, 2-3 weeks, I was going every day. And I went every day for 2 years. And if I missed a day, I really started to freak out. And came a point where I realized I'm no longer loathing this. This is like actually kind of the high point of my day. And the one thing I remember about that time, it's been a long time now, I injured my neck in there badly. But the one thing I remember about that time was like, okay, not only do I feel better now finishing this workout than I did before I went in, but I am better now. Not just feel better, I am better. I'm healthier, stronger, mind is sharper, got more energy, got all these things. And these are the weapons that we need. They're not coming with battleships and fleets of bombers, you know? They're not. They're coming with not just the narrative and not just the kind of the ideology that we have to deal with every day, but they're coming with daily assaults on our sanity.
Yes.
You know, on our sanity, on our fundamental understanding of of reality. They're all under attack on a daily basis. And, when you hear that some congressman or something gets his Twitter account suspended because he misgendered somebody, he intentionally, or maybe it doesn't even have to be intentionally, but he used the wrong pronoun other than the one that the person decided for themselves. This person, in this case, it was Rachel Levine, I think the transsexual admiral who I just did a segment on yesterday. But this guy basically said this is not the first female 4-star admiral. This is the first admiral who is a male who basically had hormone treatments and some degree of surgery, and that's what happened. Suspended his his Twitter account because he misgendered somebody. And I realized, it's like, what is happening? If I decide that my personal pronouns are going to be Your Majesty, and you Zoe can go to and in Canada apparently this is true, you can go to jail for not calling me Your Majesty. Then when we hear these kind of things, we all, and this I've heard from everybody, we look around and go, what's going on, man? What's going on? This world has gone mad. It's like, it hasn't gone mad. There is a full court press to convince you that it's gone mad. And the reason that this is happening is so that you become so befuddled, so angry, so confused, so full of despair that you simply just, okay, I'm just gonna shut up and I'm just gonna go along. And it's the presence of vitamin T that gets us to say, oh, no. You're not going to force me to do this. You're not going to force me to do that. You're not going to force me to do this. Furthermore, this isn't true and this isn't true. And I don't care what you have to say. I find it very interesting and encouraging that the groups of people who seem to be in the forefront of the people refusing to take the jab are policemen, firemen, and pilots. I've been one of those three. And there is an extremely alpha quality to these things. And the reason that there's an alpha quality is not because being a pilot makes you into an alpha, but because people who go into aviation or firefighting or police work understand that reality will not be denied. If you're a fireman and you go into a burning building, you don't get to think that, well, I'm going to concentrate on the color indigo and that'll make everything okay. It's like, this is where the rubber meets the road. You make a serious mistake in any one of these three occupations and you're going to pay for it with your life. And so what seems to be happening to me is that this kind of this soft marshmallowy core, marshmallowy America has been getting compressed by these forces. And we're now down to this, we're getting very close now to the point where there is no more compressibility, that the people who have taken what they've taken are going to have taken it, and that the people who are left are not. And I want to grow that core of I hate this word just because it's been so hijacked, but resistance. I want to grow that core of strength and self-reliance. That's the word I'm looking for. And it occurred to me that an awful lot of this is tied into our physical condition. So just to wrap this up, as a former self-defense instructor, and as a constant self-defense instructor, and furthermore, as a guy who can play drums, and I've played drums, and playing drums is exhausting work, and you can go for hours on that drum set. So as a person who gets the value of this, what would you recommend to Joe Average Citizen, especially to people who might be in their 60s or their 70s or whatever, or maybe younger people who've never done anything but played video games? What practical advice could you give them?
Let me see. This may be stepping on some toes a little bit, but as conservatives and as patriots, we talk about how pro-defense we are, right? How is it? I mean, we can't just be so pro-defense when it comes to the military.
This is, I'm sorry to jump in here, but when you say something that is that true, I always have to leap in. Yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We're all pro-defense, but we're not willing to defend our own selves. And this is what I was talking about a minute ago with your kids going to school. We have abdicated responsibility for the defense of the country. Now, that's the job of the military. That's the job of 18, 19, 20-year-olds who sign up and serve in submarines or special forces guys. No, that's not where the attack is coming from. That's not the attack vector. It
That's
is
right.
now a self-defense issue, and we cannot leave the defense of this country to other people. Sorry to leap in. I hope I didn't blow your train of thought.
You know, and the thing is, it's heartbreaking to me when people go and sacrifice limbs and lives for a country that we're not defending at home. You know,
Right.
there has to be or even people thinking that our rights are going to be defended in office. No, that has to be defended on a cultural level, on a local level. Those things have to be defended, and there has to be an updated way of doing these things, not sacrifice the principles. The Lord himself says, look, man, I need you to do what the children of the age are doing. Look at what they're doing. Look at how they're taking over. You might want to use those things to your advantage, not do them for evil, and be able to have the discernment of what you're doing these things for. So, you know, we've been warned in doing these things. Now, as a martial arts instructor, and any, when you're talking in terms of warfare, for any defense mechanism that you have, there's going to be a manual, right? You have to read the manual.
Yeah, that's right.
And to defend ourselves, Bill, we need a manual. And we have one. It's called the Bible. It is, the Lord speaks to us in military terms. All right. When it talks about the host of heaven means the host of the armies. All right. He's a military tactician. All right. So the Bible itself is a military, but like even when you're studying martial arts, when people talk about forms are useless and forms are this, and you just need to do boxing where there's no form. You need to do wrestling where there's no forms. None of that stuff is true. Boxing itself has a form. How do you think you're able to recognize it? All right. There's a technique to the jab, the rear cross, the bolo, and things like that. There's a technique to grappling. There's a manual to it. There's a form so you can recognize it. Right. So in all these things, there's a discipline to doing this stuff. And if we're going to defend ourselves, it has to be based on a discipline, a standard, you know, so we can recognize what we're doing and recognize what true liberty is. When you talked about how these things are just happening and it's just happening so subtly, right? The first description given of the devil himself is that he works in subtleties. All right. This is taught to us in the manual. How is it, Bill, that we can have this guy that we clown as somebody who's mentally deteriorated, this person who's weak in his faculties? This guy was able to walk into the White House and steal the White House from Trump. Trump, who was supposed to go in and drain the swamp, he got drowned by the swamp, spit out. And while they were at it, they injected him with swamp juice.
Yeah.
This is what happened to our country. The come and take it Mullen Law people who are so ready. Nah, we put more pride and idolatry in liberty, in guns, and these things that we want to do, but not have the real basis of what it is. You know, so when we talk about a nation of sheep will be governed by wolves. No, we're being governed by wolves because we're too proud to be sheep. When you decide that you are willing to be the sheep, the male rams, the ones associated with battle, even depicted by the god of war, Ares himself, you know, then you're ready. But other than that, because we're too proud, and that kind of gets in the way of being able to defend yourself, is when you're too proud. That gets people knocked out. Right?
Yeah,
that
sure
pride
does.
to get a person knocked out. And as I've talked about before, and I actually want to say this really quick, since you, and I think this is more important because you mentioned mowing the grass. This is very important. This is always something that's going to have to be done. Adam and Eve were created to procreate not just the human population. They were created to procreate a military. But even before doing that, right, it's supposed to be a big family military, right? Their job was to subdue the earth.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, Adam's job was to mow the lawn.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
That was his job.
Tend the garden.
Adam, tend the garden. All right. You got to keep this thing straight. That was his job as husband. That's what husbandry is. You got to mow the lawn, right? When you're going to be a husband to your wife and a father to you, firstly, a husband to your wife. I keep hearing people talk. See, this is another thing that's messing with our readiness, Bill. I want to say this really quick. This is messing with our readiness because there's too much of a premium on people being fathers. It don't take much to be a father. Anybody can go out there and knock up kids. We're seeing that all the time. Right? You want to show your kids, you want to prepare your kids, you got to show them a sense of honor and loyalty and the value of the wife and mother, right? You got to show that loyalty to them. That's the best thing that you could do for your kids. But I keep hearing, and that doesn't, because of this premium on being fathers, Adam wasn't created first to be a father. He's created first to be a husband, right?
That's the example. That there, you become a good father by being a good husband. You
That's
lead by
right.
example. That's right.
Your kids
You don't
got to
get
see
to,
that.
you don't get to be, hey buddy, how's it going? No. That's not it. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what the boys need to see.
Yes, and see, but these things, they're being subtly stripped away from us. That's why you have a lot of these men that don't know how to be men and don't know how to respect women. Their idea of respecting women is becoming one, right? So this is what we have. And just like I said earlier, Paul, this isn't a new problem. The things that we need to defend ourselves have been gone over and over again. This was talked about in Paul's day. This was talked about in the Old Testament, right? When they actually said, oh, fine, if the men aren't stepping up, then I will send a woman to judge you. Here comes Deborah. She's judge over you now. You know, when you have these people, that make these idolatrous moves, and where they go to in their femininity, it's like the word says, Bill, it's going to be like the days of Noah. And it kind of terrifies me of how bad that can get, because when it gets so bad leading up to the day of Noah, where God's just like, I'm drowning everybody. You guys are on my nerves. I'm actually going to say this. I'm sorry I made you, right? I'm sorry I made you. And I'm going to leave a remnant for you. And then when Jesus says, yeah, it's actually going to get like the days of Noah again. And a lot of this soy boy, feminine, just not ready. And how is it that we're not ready to defend ourselves against this? Well, we didn't read the manual, right? And when the Lord is telling us, I know, and from computer geeks to weapons to musicians, your technology is going to suck for you if you don't read the manual. Life is going to suck for you if you don't read the manual. And when the Lord says, yeah, it's going to be like the days of Noah before I come back. Well, one of the things that led to that is because of such effeminate behavior of men. And don't get it twisted, folks. Just because these people are effeminate doesn't mean they can't cause a lot of problems. We got Richard Levine in there right now, just like you were talking about Your Majesty. I was talking about this in the Zolofts. Richard Levine, one, we're gotta be forced to recognize him as a woman. And he wants the trappings of what it takes he's done nothing to earn the right to be called a woman. He ain't gone nothing that a woman has gone through to become a woman. That's stolen valor, dude. And now you want to call yourself a 4-star general and you have no military service. Dude, we're in the beginning of a regime where a person can just go ahead and say that, hey, I'm a general, and then I'm going to go ahead and create my military under some sort of health commission and stuff like that. These are going to be brown shirts. These are going to be Hitler Youth. That's what they're making. And so all that to say, when we had Sodom and Gomorrah, yeah, they were a bunch of effeminate people too. And they caused a lot of problems, right? And these are the things that we're under right now. Are you ready, America? Are you ready to defend yourself from these people that you think are just some limp-wristed males? No, they'll cut you, right? They're cutting people off right now. I'm not trying to promote prejudice against these people. The Lord tells us,
because we're not talking about, this is the thing. It's like, we're perfectly happy. I don't care. It's not even like, hey, I'm noble enough to say, I'm happy to call you. I don't care. I don't care what you do with your own life. Doesn't matter to me how you dress. Doesn't matter. I don't care. Yeah. But when you start forcing us into agreeing with this fantasy and swearing to it, that's when we're going to draw the line. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the point, folks. It's kind of a long episode, but this is the point. We think all of this soy is coming from the top down. It's not. It's not coming from the top down. It's coming from the bottom up.
Yes.
And we're a part of it, and we got to stop it. And the thing I like about you, Zoe, among the many things I like about you is, people, there's needless to say, all throughout the West, there's been a massive decline in religion and spirituality, spiritual strength, and so on. And I think almost all of that is due to soy Christianity. This kind of idea that Jesus was just a pot smoking hippie, and furthermore, that who are we to say that our society is better than any others? In fact, who are we to say that our society deserves to survive at all? This kind of soy spirituality, this sort of soy philosophy is deeply, deeply rooted. And the thing I like most about you is when you talk about Jesus, it's almost like I can see him up there on the Sermon on the Mount, and he's talking about peace and love, but he's working the nunchucks, or he's sitting there with the disciples. He's talking about the prodigal son. He's got the little butterfly knife, and he's not threatening anybody, and he's not like you. It's just like, it's not a friendly world out there. And every time I look at, obviously not so much of a problem as it used to be 10 years ago, but I looked at Islam. I said, Islam believes in Islam. And we need to get back to believing in what we believe in. And we do believe in that. We haven't lost the belief, but we have to understand that just that belief sitting on the couch watching TV is not going to help us. It's time to get out there and start doing some exercises and start taking some self-defense classes and making ourselves stronger and getting those testosterone levels back up again, because we have got a heck of a fight ahead of us. And you're the soldier, not the guys out there, the special forces guys. They're not in need of extra testosterone. A lot of the other recruits are, but those guys are just fine. You're the target, you're the soldier, and you're the weapon, and you're the victory. So there you go. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's time for me to go to the gym after this. I feel better, though. I feel better now than I did when I started the show. Much better.
Awesome.
So that'll do it for this edition of the Virtue Signal, made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, steely-eyed missile men and steely-eyed missile women who have stood up and determined that these messages were important. And if you want to be one of those people, then by golly, get up off the couch or whatever other horizontal device you may be resting upon, march over to your computer screen or exercise that thumb on your mobile device and click that Become a Member link, and it will help. Both of us. For Alfonso, Rachel, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Virtue Signal.